Coffee Break with Rachel Vigil, taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel Vigil.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you guys all are having a wonderful day. Your first day back at work after the holidays went well. Lots to dive into. Matt Smith is going to join us here in a little bit. We have to talk about Nathan MacKinnon because he has been absolutely unreal, and he's going to be diving into if he should be in the Hart conversation. We're going to get into that. But first, 4 names that Broncos Country could say goodbye to in the early offseason. This is an interesting list for me, and there's going to be some obvious ones where you're going to be like, Rachel, okay, and we're going to get to those ones first. But then there's 2 names on here right now that I feel like Broncos Country has slightly become attached to, and one in particular that I've been really excited to see, but I actually think that they could end up saying goodbye. So we will start with the most obvious one. Russell Wilson. Of course, there's a good chance that they're going to move on from him, and I've been thinking about every single scenario that can happen with Russell Wilson, and because he doesn't have the trade clause, the Broncos are most likely going to cut him. That's like the very obvious answers. But I was just talking with our producer, Matt, here a little bit ago, and I'm like, there are so many situations that this could happen, and who's going to have the bigger footballs? Like, who's going to be that person? The Broncos easily are going to have to pay him no matter what. So what if they come back and say, you know what, if we have to pay you, you could be a good backup for our whoever we end up drafting. Now, again, these are just scenarios. I don't think this is 100% going to happen, and I want to make that very clear. But I could totally see, like, you're not willing to give us a trade clause? Fine. We're not going to trade you then. We're not going to cut you. We're going to have to pay you regardless of that. So why not keep you on the roster? Why not let you go to some other team where you could possibly, kind of get back to your ways? I'm just trying to think of anything and everything that could possibly be a scenario, and it would not surprise me at all. I think things are going to get a little bit uglier once the season actually ends. I think that more and more is going to come out, and Broncos Country has been very divided. We've had this conversation before, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how it continues to happen because, like I said, I think I've been told by sources that more is going to come out about this situation. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like, but I know that more is going to come out from Russ's camp. Now, of course, it's kind of these 2 sides right now that are back and fighting, and Russell Wilson's going to get paid his money regardless. It seems like that no trade clause is really going to hurt them in this situation for the Denver Broncos. But again, if they're going to be like, hey, we have to pay you all this money regardless, we could make you a backup. And Russell Wilson obviously wants to play the game of football. So would he then all of a sudden trade his contract so that he could have a trade closet? Like, I think this situation can get really, really wild, but that's going to be the first one. And that's the most obvious one, is most likely the Denver Broncos are going to move on from Russell Wilson. They're going to cut him. They're going to eat all the money that they're going to pay him. And that's going to be that. But also, we need to start having this conversation because, you guys, Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes may have had similar stats. And I've seen this conversation time and time again from everybody who's supporting Russell Wilson. Yes, they have very similar stats. But here's the thing. This is the better of the 2 years of Russell Wilson. This is one of the worst years that we have seen out of Patrick Mahomes in a long, long time. And yes, we can blame the wide receivers. We can blame Kelsey and Taylor Swift if you feel the need to. There's tons of things that you can put the blame on, but Patrick Mahomes has not looked the same this year. And we can dive into, you can see down on the screen, 14 interceptions compared to the 8 of Russell Wilson. Yes, so many of these things look very similar. But again, this is the worst of Patrick Mahomes. So you want your quarterback to have or to be just as good as one of the worst years of one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen? Like, heck no. You want a quarterback that can go out there and beat Patrick Mahomes. How many years has it been since the Broncos have won the AFC West? That's what you want. So for everybody, and again, I'm not anti-Russ of any nature. I really wanted it to work out, but I am sick of this conversation of, oh my gosh, you're going to get rid of Russell Wilson when he has the best stats compared to Patrick Mahomes. This is one of Mahomes' worst years, and I'm sick of having this conversation time and time again. I feel like everybody is. I even saw Mike Evans tweet about it yesterday, about this conversation, and that seems to be everything that, like, Russell Wilson supporters are just dying on the hill, that these numbers are very, very similar. And you guys, to be honest, I am completely over that conversation, so let's please move on. Just like I think, and this isn't a player, but I do think that the Broncos are going to say goodbye to George Payton. And this one also feels like a very obvious answer. I'm 100% with you. He's the one that put the Broncos in this mess. Now, to be fair to George Payton, he may have put them in this mess, But the Walton Penner ownership group kind of amplified this mess by bringing in Sean Payton. Sean Payton is a very good head coach. Obviously, he won a Super Bowl, but it kind of seems like this is a bit of a trend with Sean Payton. He kind of put the Saints in cap hell because he thought he could just get away with everything. He obviously got suspended for a year by doing things that were illegal in the NFL. And so we're almost kind of seeing these similarities with they did something illegal or attempted to do something illegal to Russell Wilson by telling him that they were going to bench him if he didn't take out some of the clauses in his contract. That's pretty illegal. Obviously, with what he did with the Saints was illegal. And again, he put the Saints in cap hell before he decided to head out to Fox. And here we are now looking at cap hell again with Russell Wilson because Sean Payton really, from the get-go, even though he may never admit it, it really does seem like he had no intention of ever working with Russell Wilson. And you can go back all the way to when they signed Jarrett Stidham and you would be like, yeah, look at how much they're paying a backup quarterback, which means that he either one, had zero faith in Russell Wilson, which very much could be an easy possibility, or two, he never intended on working with Russ in the first place. And if that's the case, then I think the Walton Penner ownership group should have looked at the numbers that they were paying Russell Wilson and tried to find a head coach who actually wanted to work alongside the quarterback that you were going to be paying a ton of money to. And essentially, you almost put yourself in more of a hellish situation if you're the Walton Penner ownership group when it came to this. So while they're going to move on from George Payton, I am sure of that almost as soon as Russell Wilson goes out the door, George Payton will also be headed out the door. But the Walton Penner ownership group almost did this to themselves. And again, if they go on and win a Super Bowl in 2-3 years, none of it's going to matter. But until they're able to do that, until they're over to overcome that mountain, Broncos Country is going to look at this and say, hey, look at what you guys made us do. Now, this next one, you guys, I have been waiting for so long to see, and it absolutely eats me alive to say this name, but I think that they could easily move on from Tim Patrick. I have been so excited time and time again, every single training camp, to see Tim Patrick go out there for a season. He is the Aaron Gordon of the Denver Broncos, or he was the Aaron Gordon of the Denver Broncos. Every single time I would look at him and I'd be like, all right, Mr. Consistent, 100%. I cannot wait to see what he throws out there. He's this dog. He's tall. He's big. He can take down a defender. Like, I was so pumped to see Tim Patrick be able to go out there. And I think just to save a little bit of cap room, and you guys, he's almost 30 years old. He's hasn't played the last 2 seasons because obviously tearing his Achilles or ACL, I don't remember which one at the moment. He hasn't been able to play the past 2 seasons. So the team would eat $6 million worth of dead money with a net savings of $10 million if they just were to say, all right, Tim Patrick, we're so sorry. And you think back to, how could we forget when George Payton signed Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton to those big contract extensions, and everyone was like, Courtland Sutton hasn't looked the exact same. Now, luckily, Courtland Sutton, obviously, he didn't play last week because of his concussion, but he's gotten back to wide receiver number 1 form. Him and Russell Wilson had that serious chemistry, and I wish we would have been able to see Jarrett Stidham and and Courtland Sutton this past weekend. But I think we will be able to see him. I'm pretty sure he's going to be out of concussion protocol this week. So I'm going to be interested to see, because that was always Russ's number 1 guy. Like, you could just tell that the chemistry was there time and time again. And so that one I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to see, if those numbers start rolling a little bit more for Jarrett Stidham over Russell Wilson. But back to Tim Patrick. I think it would kill me. I would be so sad. I don't know who or what team would be willing to take an opportunity on Tim Patrick if he were to essentially, be moved on from the Denver Broncos because of the past 2 years of injuries. And it just breaks my heart. I remember the day watching him go down at practice last year at training camp. It broke my heart, you guys. We were all so excited. And so, yeah, I think that could very, very well be a real possibility for the Denver Broncos to say, hey, we can save $10 million and just let him go. And especially, these are obviously 2 very, very different receivers, but with the way that Courtland Sutton has looked, I do not think that they are going to move on from Jerry Jeudy, despite a lot of people wanting them to. I really don't think so. But also with Marvin Mims definitely starting to shine, being kind of that lightning guy too, I think that there's not a whole lot of room for Tim Patrick, even though that kills me, you guys. It really, really kills me because they don't have a big enough wide receiver like Tim Patrick. And, he's just this bulky guy, and he has the muscle, but he also has the height. And that's the difference between him and Courtland Sutton is Courtland Sutton has the height. He can get up there. He can get a little bit of separation, but he's not that big, heavy, bulky type wide receiver that obviously is just a huge bummer. So that one would absolutely hurt me. I would be so, so, so sad. And I'm really hoping that he has not played his last game in Denver, but I definitely could see it happening. Now, the fourth name on this list is one that I feel like Broncos Country has absolutely come to love and respect, and that's linebacker Josie Jewell. He was a 2018 fourth-round pick out of Iowa. He recently signed a 2-year extension, which is now he will be an unrestricted free agent after this year, and I could see the Denver Broncos choosing to move on from him. Now, he's had 99 sacks, 54 solo, 45 assists, or tackles, not sacks, 99 tackles, 54 solo, 45 assists, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbled on year. But he's been this vocal leader for the Denver Broncos that I think they so often really, really crave. Justin Simmons obviously being one of those captains out there. But I feel like somebody like Josie Jewell, who is very vocal, who does a good job of kind of assisting the defense and getting people where they need to be, he may not be like excellent, and we may not point out like, oh my gosh, he's really good at this one thing. But overall, as a linebacker, he's done a really, really good job. And again, it's not just like, or you know what, he's just really well-rounded. Like that's the word that we need to use with him. He's just a well-rounded linebacker, and he covers well in the zone. He's got great spatial awareness that I think. And I think the Denver Broncos may also just be like, you know what, we cannot on his last contract, it was $11 million. I think they may be able to say, hey, we might be able to find somebody else who can do the exact same things that he does for a little bit less. You know, look in the draft too. That's one of those hard things with the older you get, the more you're a veteran, you sometimes want to get paid a little bit more than you can. And if somebody who's younger is able to come in, then you might be able to see that too. So I could see them definitely moving on from Josie Jewell, which would be kind of a bummer because, again, I think that he's really started to shine a little bit in, I feel like this year, really. Last year, it was like his name was brought up quite a few times, but I feel like this year in particular, it's been like, oh, he's the leader that the Broncos need. He's kind of just that overall, like I said, well-rounded player that has done really good things for this Denver Broncos team. And again, it's not like he's got this like giant highlight reel of crazy plays. But again, he's involved in every single play. And I think that that can really have an impact too for this Denver Broncos team. So I do feel like he's just one of those names that, yeah, you might see him be like, we can move on from him. And so I don't know. It's just one of those names that I feel like they're going to say goodbye to. So the Russell Wilson one is an obvious one, you guys. George Payton, see you later. You're going to be headed out the door. Although my suspicions are now leading more to the ownership group. Surprising, because I've been blaming George Payton for putting them in this mess this entire time. But I feel like I'm going more a little bit to the ownership group of, hey, it hasn't been too good, I'm not going to lie, but you guys kind of put yourselves in even more of a cat hell by bringing in a coach that didn't want to work with Russell Wilson. And then number 3, Tim Patrick. It would break my heart because I would hope so much. You guys, I've been waiting to see him for so long. So that one would crush me just a little bit. And then Josie Jewell. Definitely a leader, somebody who's always in every single play, who's hyping guys up too when they get tackles. I think that those are 4 names that Broncos Country could 100% say goodbye to in the early off season. Checking out some of your guys' comments. I know a lot of people they feel very connected to a lot of these names. Like I said, even at the start of the show, somebody said probably keep Patrick, trade Sutton or Judy. Jerry Judy is garbage. Everybody seems to be on the Jerry Judy hate train, but I really do seem like Sean Payton is kind of really hyped up on Jerry Judy a lot of the times too. But we got to do this because it's been a while since we've done it here on Coffee Break. We need to say congratulations to our King Supers Fan Football Pick'em winner of the week, you guys. So let's get into it. Matt Smith, good morning. How are you?
Finally, I'm back. It took me long enough, Rachel. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, to be honest with you.
It has been a minute, Matt. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Lots to talk about, obviously, with the Denver Broncos. We're going to get into the Colorado Avalanche. But first, I need to know, what are you picking up from King Supers this week? Because you get a fat old gift card, and I am jealous.
Gosh, just, the essentials. Egg whites. I'll probably get some eggs, make myself some egg whites in the morning. Always a good breakfast.
Are we doing anything like new for the new year? Are we on some healthy kick that everybody needs to hop in on or anything, or just normal groceries?
No, I'm good. No,
I'm
no,
okay.
no New Year's resolutions as far as food goes. No,
Oh,
just do the best you can.
wait. No New Year's resolutions as far as food goes, or no New Year's resolutions at all? Different
My
conversation, my
New Year's
friend.
resolutions are more like general, like joy and happiness and wealth and the things that you wish for when you hold your breath going through a tunnel. You know what I'm saying? Those are my New Year's resolutions.
For sure. Okay, my New Year's resolution, Matt, I don't know if you know this about me.
I didn't, but I would like to know. So tell me.
I'm terrible at laundry. Like,
Really?
terrible. I went into the new
What do
year
you struggle with?
the whole process. I hate it all. I just hate it. I have too many clothes for my closet. I'm fully aware of that. I suck at it.
Okay.
But I literally had 8 loads of laundry going into the new year, and I have gotten it down to 3, and my New Year's resolution is to have no more than 2 for the entire time. Like,
I
I
love it.
cannot have 2 more or 2 plus loads of laundry, so that's my New Year's resolution. So, I'm glad yours is a little bit more like, I just wanna be happy and enjoy my
I'll be
life, but
happy.
mine is very much,
Yeah.
I cause myself stress by not having clothes. Anyways, moving on because we have to talk about Nathan MacKinnon. Absolutely unreal. Let's go into last night's
We can
game
get back to
first.
the laundry though if you wanted to.
It's causing me, like, I can feel my heart starting to go because I haven't completed the journey. I still need a few more loads to get back
There are
to.
services that come and pick up your clothes and drop
Not where
them
I
off.
live.
Really?
Yes, I
That is
know.
frustrating.
I know. I'm on the outskirts of the Denver, like, area, so, yeah, they don't come out to my house quite yet, but I'm hoping one day, fingers crossed.
Maybe a listener.
Yeah, somebody wanna do my laundry? Just kidding. It's totally a joke. Please, nobody do my laundry. Okay, Matt, let's get into the Avs, though, because obviously they win in OT last night, 5-4, but it felt like they were they were outplaying literally the entire night. This Avalanche team is causing me, see, my heart is starting to bump even more because they're causing me stress because they are acting as a better team, but yet they're not able to put on the points that we saw when they did the cup run. And I feel like that's such an old conversation because it's been so long now, but it's like you have those high hopes for this team.
But it feels the same, doesn't it? It feels like,
Yeah, it
oh, we're
does.
just waiting for you to get back there, right? And part of it, Rach, is because they're hamstrung without Gabriel Landeskog. That's a serious problem for them, and I think they're missing some of that leadership. And you just mentioned, like, you're on the edge of your seat when you're watching these games because, okay, they're first place in the West and they're first place in the division, but everything is so tough on them. They don't make anything easy on themselves. And so, yeah, last night I thought it was a good win. MacKinnon in overtime with the game winner. Nichushkin's been really good lately.
Yeah.
Our guy Mikko, we talked about him at the beginning of the year. He's kind of tailed off a little bit lately. He's got to get back to producing. But I mean, yeah, when you got Nathan MacKinnon out there, you got a pretty good chance to win every night.
He's the first player in 35 years, Nathan MacKinnon, to record a point in each of his team's first 20-plus home games of the season. Do you know the last guy to do that?
I don't know the last one, but I do know Gretzky has the lead with 40, has the record.
He was the last one because it was in the 1988 and 1989 season. Yeah, and that he found it in all 40 Kings home games.
Just double what MacKinnon's already done. He'll be at Gretzky then.
You think that he could do it?
Maybe. I mean, the way he's playing right now, he's the best player in the world. I mean, he's the MVP of the league. And what's funny is if you go back to last year in like December, they played a game in Philly and he got hit along the boards and missed 10 games. When he came back, he was the best player in the league the rest of the season. Had he not gotten hurt those 10 games, I honestly think we might be talking about back-to-back MVPs. But this is the year. I just read it last night. ESPN, all the voters, they've got him number one. So I'm glad to see it because he deserves it. He's never had an MVP before, which is nuts.
It's crazy to think about that, with somebody literally like Nathan MacKinnon, and we talk so highly about him all the time, the fact that he's never won an MVP. But it does kind of feel like he's got that chip on his shoulder this year.
Yeah, and again, he's got to do a lot of it himself. And I think there's some of that chip too. It's like, all right, boys, get on my back. Let's go. That type of situation where you miss Landy. You miss Landy to take some of that responsibility off of you, in the locker room and everything, and certainly on the ice as well. So, he's not coming through that door, so they got to keep trucking without him.
Do you think, though, if Landy was here that he would still be in that conversation? Because it really does feel like he's completely taken the team on his back and has played, right, captain of like, all right, I'm going to do this. But if Landy was here, I just almost wonder if he wouldn't be having quite the season. I'm not saying he wouldn't be having a bad season, but I just wonder if he wouldn't be having this season.
Or maybe he'd be having a better season because he'd be playing with better players, right? I mean, there's definitely different ways to go about it. He probably wouldn't even be playing with them, to be honest with you, because they would need Landeskog on the second line because they got no second line right now. So, yeah, I mean, maybe not. Who knows? But either way, I don't think he'd care about being in that conversation. If you could have Landy back or be the MVP, I think he'd take Landy back.
True, absolutely, 100%. That's your key to the cup, right?
Yeah,
Like, we're
that's the
still
New
not
Year's
counting him
resolution.
out, but man, do I hope that he can come back.
Well, you asked me for my New Year's resolutions. That's my New Year's resolution, is to give my knee cartilage to Gabriel Landeskog somehow so we can get him back out there.
We'll go book your surgery, and then,
Sounds
we
good.
can get him back out there, and then maybe you can get, like, tickets for life because you really did such a big
Nah,
contribution.
I don't even need I don't even need it. Just want to watch him play again.
For sure. Let's talk about Georgie, though, because
Yeah.
he obviously struggled a little bit last night, but he has played a lot. Do we need to cut him a little bit of slack, the fact that they also just need to get Prostotov out there more?
You know, he leads the NHL in wins, Georgiev, right now.
That's crazy.
For as much drama as people want to put around him right now, he's still leading the NHL in wins. The funny thing about him, and I go back and forth, there's a couple of people on Twitter that are, Georgiev, it's always the goalie. But
Always.
it's you got a lot of guys making defensive mistakes and giving up wide open grade A chances. Now, I think at the highest percentage, I'd expect an NHL goaltender to save about 50 to 60% of those grade A looks, breakaways, what have you. But he's been up and down. The thing is, Rach, is they don't need a Vezina winner. They don't need, one of the best goalies in the league. They just need average to above average goaltending, as we saw during their cup run, if they play well enough in front of them. The problem is they haven't been playing well enough in front of him. But look, I mean, I think considering everything, he leads the NHL in wins with an under 90 save percentage, which is pretty unheard of. So I think you can kind of read into that those two things typically don't go together. And it's just about the quality of looks that they're allowing in front of them. And look, they've got, I think now today it updated. They have the third toughest remaining strength of schedule left in the NHL this season. So as good as things have gone so far, being first in the West while being a little bit shorthanded, just there's some really tough matchups coming up, and they didn't do a good job separating in December. So I think it was our own Scrappy Will last night put out, well, would you look at that? And they were first place in the West. And I said, looks can be deceiving because they're about to hit a really tough stretch here. It's gut check time, Rach.
Yeah, no kidding. It's a long season, though. So, of course, hopefully the Avs can continue to just be on a hot streak, keep rolling. But you said looks can be deceiving, and that's the true case with the Denver Broncos. How Russell Wilson put on such a good face when behind the scenes he's being told that he could possibly get benched, something very illegal because he wouldn't take clauses out of his contract, Matt. I'm curious your thoughts on this whole situation.
How much time we got? How long is this show?
We got approximately 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Hit it.
Yeah, look, illegal. I think it is interesting to see how public opinion on him has flipped. And, we have this culture that we are so quick to react to something, so quick to form an opinion. But when it comes to something like this, where you have two sides that have two different stories here, you kind of have to wait a little bit and hang back to see how it all plays out. Now, a lot of people got reactionary to the paragraph and a half of a letter that his camp leaked. But I think for everybody out there, the best way I would describe it is you have two camps, Russ's camp and the Broncos, that are spinning like crazy. Russ's camp is coming out trying to make himself look like a more sympathetic figure and trying to make the Broncos look like the bad guys. The Broncos are trying to make Russ look incompetent and point to all of his numbers and point to his production and say, no, it's the incompetence here. And Russ is going, no, it's the money. When truthfully, it's a little bit of both, right? Russ isn't being able to perform what Sean Payton wants of him and operate the offense efficiently enough. And he's also getting paid way too much money for the level of production that he's putting out onto the field. And if you're the Broncos, why would you want to sign up to continue doing that for year after year after year after year? And so it puts them in this position where they're at a crossroads as a franchise. What do you want to do? Right? You just mortgaged the future. You gave up draft picks. You paid him a massive contract that hasn't even kicked in yet. So now what's the story? Well, if I'm going to get that level of play out of Jarrett Stidham, then I can get out of Russell Wilson. Why would I pay Russ? And the fastest way to get out of this, right, is to find a franchise quarterback. But I said this, I think it was yesterday or the day before on the air. I said to Kyle and I were filling in for Mark and Mike. I said, okay, so how much, what percentage of this core do you think is a championship core? And Kyle said 15%. And I said, I think that's pretty accurate. So if it's only 15%, why would you keep going down the path of trying to retool and, Band-Aid this thing together? Because even if you got the quarterback, you got 50% of a championship roster. You don't have a ton of playmakers. So I think there's the argument to be made that, look, they just are lacking a lot of talent on this team. But there's also the argument to be made that the quarterback who you're paying to raise everybody's level of play just isn't doing it right now. And they gave him 2 full years to do it. And as we know, Sean Payton is not a patient guy. That is not a character trait of his. And coming here, he wanted to have success, and he wanted to have success relatively quickly. So we'll see how they move forward, but it doesn't surprise me that they're moving on from Russell. I mean, I think we all kind of had that inkling in the back of our mind at the beginning of the year. It's like, well, I mean, he was so god awful last year. If Sean can't fix him, then what are they going to do? And so now they're in a bad position. And this is something that I'm trying to urge Broncos fans that, okay, the next few years might be pretty slim, but you know, you got to go through that, because John Elway always made rebuilding around here a 4-letter word, rebuild. It's not. You have to honor the process at some point. It's been 8 years of missing the playoffs. You know, it's been 7 years without a winning season. And to the folks who are like, no, how is it going to get better next year? What's your better alternative? I don't really have one. That's the problem. Until you're out from under Russ, beggars can't be choosers. You're going to be hamstrung a lot by the contract. So either you make a big move and go up and get a quarterback. You can sit at 15 and go get a quarterback, but or you're bad next year. You tank it out for shedeur.
Oh, I was wondering if this was going to come up. I literally was about to ask you. So are you saying you don't like any quarterbacks in this draft, and the big CU guys saying, hey, let's go for Shedeur Sanders?
You know, I actually don't really like where they're positioned to take a quarterback. Michael Penix is interesting. He is interesting for sure. I'm not a Bo Nix guy. I've seen Bo Nix play live. Not a Bo Nix fan. JJ McCarthy, I think if there's an NFL GM that takes him in the first round, he ought to be drug tested. And outside of that, I don't think you're going to be up for Drake May or Caleb Williams unless the Bears want to move first overall and you trade 2 firsts and Patrick Surtain. So
could you imagine if they did that again?
If it was for, I'll say this. If it was for Caleb Williams, I think I'd be okay with it, because it's not like it was for Trey Lance or Mitch Trubisky or one of these projects. Caleb can step in and play right away. We got to see him live this year. I'm not saying I would necessarily make that move, although if that's what it took, I'd think about it. I would think about it, because the thing about it is, okay, you're going to have to strip this team down for parts, right? Well, you already have a lot of your offensive line under contract. And when you draft a rookie quarterback, typically you're bringing them into a situation where they're running for their lives, because you also don't have an offensive line. Well, the Broncos have that. So maybe for the next year or so, you grind it out. I mean, you're probably not going to win many games either way next year. Why do you need Patrick Surtain in that situation? I'm not necessarily advocating for it, but if they made that move, Rach, I would understand. It would be better than moving that type of value to go up and get a project of a guy who's played 1 season, you know, of college football, or, you know, he's a great runner, but we don't know what he could do as a passer. So for me, I do like Caleb, but honestly, you could save that 1st round draft pick. You save the 3rd round draft, probably save the 1st next year, and your franchise cornerback be very not good next year, and then go out, make a move, make a play for Shedeur, who I know I'm biased because I'm close to it, but I truly believe, Rach, that he's going to be a really good NFL quarterback. I think he's actually be a better NFL quarterback than he is a college quarterback. His game translates much better to the NFL. I mean, he's got Brady as a mentor. His footwork is there. Saw him with one of the worst offensive lines in the country last year. So hopefully, as he starts to get some more time, it looks better. But it wasn't him. I mean, you were there. You watched. You knew he wasn't the reason that they were struggling. It's because they couldn't give him any time. You know. So I'm really high on him. He's the first quarterback off the board in 25. So if you put me in the position as a franchise where I had a chance to take him next year and I didn't have a quarterback, I'd do it.
Okay. Very high on Shedeur.
And then you get everything else that comes with it. You get the eyeballs, the ratings, the attention, the hype. I mean, come on.
Do you get the dad?
Huh?
Do you get the dad?
Do you get the dad? You're talking about getting rid of Sean and hiring Deion?
Well, I'm just saying, does Deion go wherever Shedeur goes?
I imagine Deion would probably stay pretty close. He's already got a place around here, so it'll be super easy for him to come watch his son play while he's coaching, the Buffs the national title.
Well, okay. So we're a little crazy on this Wednesday morning.
I'm just kidding.
We need a little bit of coffee or something, apparently. Matt Smith, always an absolute pleasure. You and I both have talked, though, that we are not, well, I'm at least not, I don't know, you kind of just switched on me. I'm not very high on Caleb Williams. You're saying possibly, I guess, go Caleb Williams, but
I like him.
I don't think
He's
either
a
one
good
of
player.
us think the
He's a
Denver
good player.
Broncos could ever do it.
I just think you need to rebuild, right? Like you need to
Yeah.
restock the coffers at some point. They need to get talent in here. And so, I mean, if they made the move, Rach, I would understand it, is kind of where I'm coming from. I wouldn't have a big problem with it. You're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you're still hamstrung with Russell Wilson's contract. The first thing is they got to get him the hell out of Colorado.
Oh boy. Well, definitely going to be an interesting couple of weeks here once the season ends. Matt Smith, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thanks, Rach. Good luck with the laundry.
Thank you. Good luck with your King Supers shopping. I'm very jealous, actually.
I don't need luck there.
Okay.
I don't need luck there. That's all skill.
All right. Matt Smith, everybody. Absolutely love having him on every single time. He always provides me so many laughs. Plus, he's so close. If you do not follow him on Twitter, follow him on Twitter if you are a Buffs fan, because he is so close to the program right now, and he's done really, really great work over there. So, you guys, that is going to do it for this Wednesday episode of Coffee Break. You know when you're having one of those mornings and everything's going really well, you're like 15 minutes ahead of schedule, you're like sending out everything that you need to, everything's going really good, and then all of a sudden, something goes really bad. That was literally my morning. I was like ahead of schedule. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have time to actually sit down, eat some breakfast. Like things are going good. I've got everything on wraps. And then my dog threw up this morning and I was like, oh no. And that delayed me a good solid 10 minutes. So I didn't get to have my peaceful breakfast, but I'm about to go home, check on the puppy, and hope you guys have a wonderful Wednesday. And we'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for another episode of Coffee Break. Make sure you come hang out with us and we will see you guys then. Bye, everybody.